Hello, students, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about altered states of consciousness. Altered states of consciousness. So, a quick review about how neurotransmitters activate receptor sites. So, remember, we're talking about agonists and antagonists. So, an agonist is a molecule that mimics a neurotransmitter and activates the receptor site. And an antagonist doesn't quite fit, so it prevents the receptor site from being activated. So one way I like to remember this is like I think about the antagonist in a story is trying to block the main character, and then the agonist is just the other one. So altered states of consciousness. So we're going to talk today about psychoactive drugs, and for many of you, this is going to be a review if you've taken a health class. So some of this I'm going to breeze over quickly, but you can always pause the video to read the slides and get more information. Terms you definitely want to make sure that you know are withdrawal, dependence, / addiction, and tolerance. And remember that dependence can be physical or psychological or both. In physical dependence, the body is like altered in such a way that it craves or needs whatever the substance is, like heroin or opiate use is a good example of this. Psychological dependence is the substance is used to cope with daily life or with stress. So like smoking is both physically dependent, but also psychologically dependent because some people think that it helps to reduce or relieve their anxiety or stress. So the first things we're going to talk about are depressants. And depressants are chemicals that reduce neural activity or slow down neural activity. So we're talking about alcohol, barbiturates, and opiates. So alcohol use. Alcohol impacts your neural functioning. It slows it down, reduces sympathetic activity in the sympathetic nervous system, slows thoughts and physical reaction time. Alcohol really affects the cerebellum, so like making movements sluggish and clumsy. It can reduce memory formation. And it also impairs judgment or self-control. This is often why people who are under the influence of alcohol will do things that they wouldn't normally do when they're sober. So it's impairing like your frontal lobe specifically. So if we're looking at chronic use, so the brain scan on top, the MRI on top is a woman with alcoholism, with a healthy brain, no alcoholism, and the image below is a scan of a woman who is an alcoholic. What do you notice about the differences in the brain scans? Barbiturates. Barbiturates are drugs that are technically tranquilizers, and they depress the activity of the central nervous system. So they help reduce anxiety and help induce sleep. Some problems, it impairs memory and judgment, concentration, and if combined with other depressants like alcohol, can slow the nervous system down to the point where you can die. Opiates. So opiates are highly addictive depressants. Opiates are chemicals like morphine and heroin that are derived from the poppy flower. They also depress the nervous system and reduce anxiety, and especially are used to reduce pain. So often opiates are prescribed as pain relievers. If you take high enough doses of opiates, you get a sense of euphoria and well-being. And opiates work at the receptor sites for body's pain reducers, so specifically with endorphins. Stimulants. Stimulants intensify neural activity. So examples of stimulants, nicotine, caffeine, amphetamine, cocaine, and ecstasy. Some of the side effects, physical side effects, we have pupil dilation, increased breathing and heart rate, increased blood sugar, and decreased appetite. Caffeine. Caffeine gives us energy. It can disrupt our sleep. And you can easily start to experience withdrawal symptoms if used daily. So some withdrawal symptoms: headaches, irritability, fatigue, and difficulty concentrating. And it's also important to note that although many of you might not be fans of coffee, caffeine addiction is still very prevalent in teens because of the prevalence of like energy drink use. So, and that actually has way more caffeine than coffee does, and sugar. Nicotine. So nicotine arouses the brain. It increases alertness. It increases our heart rate and blood pressure. It can trigger relaxation in really high levels. It also reduces circulation to the extremities, and it can suppress our appetite for carbohydrates. Uh, there aren't a whole lot of positive benefits to nicotine use, and yet it's still very prevalent. And I mean, although I know smoking cigarettes has been and smokeless tobacco has been on the decline, the vaping has been on the incline, and it's still the same substance, just different form. So why smoke? So a lot of people start to smoke because of how it's portrayed in popular culture, or because of their peers, like the peer pressure to kind of want to do that. Um, it's positively reinforced, so we tend to find smoking rewarding because of the stimulating effects as a pick me up, and so it's a behavior that's learned. Um, and after regular use, people have difficulty stopping smoking because the withdrawal symptoms can be so bad: increased anxiety, irritability, distractibility, insomnia. Um, it's a really, really difficult a really difficult habit to kick. Cocaine. Cocaine blocks reuptake uh, and increases levels at the synapse of dopamine. So this is the rewarding feeling you get when a person does cocaine. It lifts our mood, so it increases serotonin. It gives us energy, so it increases norepinephrine, and it makes us feel euphoric for about 45 minutes, and then the effects wear off. So after the euphoric stage, people tend to crash, and it tends to be worse than you felt before you took the drug, leading to depression and pain, which makes people want to do more cocaine. Um, Tolerance is pretty common, so over time you get withdrawal symptoms of cocaine. It gets worse and worse and worse, and some people just take cocaine just to feel a sense of normalcy, and so it becomes a cycle of overdose and withdrawal, which can be really damaging to the heart. Methamphetamine. So here's an example of a meth user from 1998 and then again in 2002. Methamphetamine, you get a sustained release of dopamine. You get about 8 hours of energy and euphoria. And then afterwards, irritability, insomnia, seizures, high blood pressure, violence, and depression. Meth addiction can become all consuming. It's all a person thinks about. And prolonged use of methamphetamine can lead to psychosis, very similar to schizophrenic symptoms, hallucinations, things like that. Ecstasy, or methylene dioxymethamphetamine. So it's a synthetic stimulant that increases dopamine and greatly increases serotonin. People get a feeling of intense euphoria, hallucinations, an artificial feeling of being connected to people and wanting to be intimate. And then afterwards, in the short run, people feel dehydrated, overheated, their blood pressure goes up. Once you get past that, your serotonin producing neurons lead to like a severe depression. Your sleep pattern is disrupted, memory is impaired, and the immune system is suppressed as well. Hallucinogens. So we're talking about lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. And it also impacts serotonin transmission, which can cause hallucinations. So basically images and other sensations that don't come in through the senses. So hallucination is a perception without a corresponding sensation. Marijuana, or tetrahydrocannabinol. Marijuana binds with your brain's cannabinoid receptors. How it affects consciousness: you get amplified sensations, so whether that be sight, smell, taste, touch, a disinhibition of impulses, and a euphoric mood. And also the lack of an ability to sense satiety. And satiety is like feeling full. So you can eat and eat and eat and eat and never feel full. So this can lead to impaired motor coordination and perceptual ability and slower reaction time. Um, and it accumulates in the body, leading to needing more the next time around. Over time, it can cause the brain to shrink in the areas of memory processing and emotion. And if you're smoking marijuana, like it's just as detrimental to the lungs as nicotine is, or tobacco. Why do people do drugs? So there's a biopsychosocial explanation for this. So there are genetic predispositions and how our neurotransmitters work. There's psychological aspects like stress or disorders like depression. So people are self-medicating. And then there's your cultural environment. So the culture you grew up in's attitude towards drug use, the peers that you surround yourself with. So again, biological factors. Here's a little more information about biological, psychological, and social factors. You can pause this and read more about those. So controversies related to addiction. Are substances inherently addictive, and should they be avoided at all costs? Well, only 10 to 16% of people who try drugs, even including morphine and cocaine, actually become addicted, which is still, I mean, when you're talking about the whole population of, say, our country or even the world, that's still a high number. But I mean, it's not as high as you might have thought. Does recovery require therapy or require a 12-step group? Recovery rates do not seem to really differ much from people quitting on their own. And so is the addiction concept applicable to repeated behaviors that do not involve ingesting chemicals? So labeling it this way can be seen as making excuses for misbehavior such as gambling or sexual affairs. However, many of the dependence criteria are often met, and there may be a dopamine-based chemical process underlying some addictive patterns of behavior. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a good day.